Welcome to another episode of Kai-Zen Consciousness. Today's topic I am calling, I have chosen to like things. Welcome, Ehnes here. This is Kai-Zen Consciousness, where you can learn to master your life from the inside out. So let's take a look at this choosing to like things. First, I want to really clear off the table fast that I'm not talking about social media likes. Okay, I'm talking about liking things from your heart, choosing to engage authentically in the environment. So, I wanted to point out that a good place to start with this, and you take on a new topic, and you kind of want to find a reference point. Where should we go? We go to das Google. So I type into Google what I'm looking for, and what do I get back? Social media likes. Social media likes. How to get more social media likes, why it's important that you get social media likes, so forth and so on. Scrolling down, I get to the Huffington Post that says you should like your work. Okay, that makes sense, especially for the new generations that are very work-centered. And then I get to the Oxford Handbook that just defines liking. But what I'm looking for is authentically liking something. I'm choosing to connect, I'm choosing to engage, and I want to do it authentically. So of course, if you look back at the literature, what you find is that this sounds like positive thinking. You surround yourself with positive affirmations. You repeat positive mantras. And I think that is a great place to start, because when you want to create a change, you've got to build up momentum. But what I'm trying to share with you now is that I've arrived at a place that looks a little bit deeper than that. I want to not just, when I connect with something, have one point of connection. I want to find numerous layers of connection. Okay, so instead of simply this, it becomes something where you have all these layers that instantly connect, and the biggest place that I want to connect with things is by way of my heart. So liking something authentically means that I embrace it. It means that I connect to it, with it, I understand it the best that I can. I'm open to let things come in and teach me new ways of engagement, new perspectives. Words that came to me on what this translates to is hopeful optimism. That's how I engage with things. I'm hopefully optimistic, okay, that they will be beneficial, that I can contribute and add value to them. What prompted this is that I wanted to get out of my head and drop into a space that's a little bit more timeless and less consumed with itself. And that is the heart space. When you drop into this space, you enter flow. What Mihai Csikszentmihalyi wrote all his wonderful work on is this timelessness, this space where you are creating, where it isn't about deadlines. You find a way to tap into your potential. You start to actualize. You see that things happen really quickly and simultaneously can take a long time. It is a very, very interesting place to find. But what was hard is how to tap into it. And what I'm finding is that moving from my head into my heart space, breathing properly, slowing down, and the more I practice it, the easier it gets for me to tap into that space. So when I rock back into my heart space, what actually happens is that the universe answers me. It answers me with abundance, with multiple ways of looking at things. It can be physical abundance, but mostly it's this sort of abundance that you know is best represented by the word love. To me, love is empowering and it is sustainable. It lasts, okay? Versus ego answers that are very short term. They're for the now. They get me from point A to point B. Both of these are valuable. I don't ever want to say that one has to triumph. The way we live, the way that we're designed, we need to have both of these tools in our box. But what I'm finding is that it's way more fulfilling to spend more time in that space of flow and that heart space than it is to spend time in my head and in the ego. So one analogy is that before finding this out, I used to think that my day was consumed by basically going up, these psychological, emotional, and physical steps. So I would just climb, 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 and then eventually I would find myself a small landing. I would take a deep sigh and kind of say, okay, here's where I am. And my goal for the long term was to find the biggest and best landing that I could get to and hang out there. But since this is never ending and there are no final landing spaces as long as we're alive, what I've come to find by rocking into this heart space is that all of a sudden there are less steps and bigger landings. And then it's just another few steps and I get to an even bigger landing instead of many, many, many steps with these very small landings. So I find that the quality of my connections, my interactions, is much stronger than it used to be. I used to go for the quantity. I really thought it was about the quantity of connections and interactions. But what I'm finding is that less is more, that fewer connections but deeper is much more fulfilling. So looking back at the human needs, and I'll leave a link below for those videos, we get to the growth and contribution needs. And that's what's being satisfied at this point. So meeting as many moments as possible in this hopeful and optimistic state has really led to this sustainable and perpetual way of embracing moments with this frequency of love, with this interaction of being connected, of caring. So with experience and life comes a world that we create, the world that psychologically, emotionally, and spiritually we live in. Not the outside world, that's secondary, the inside world. And what I'm finding by rocking back into this heart space, into this heart frequency of love and bliss, all of a sudden I'm finding way more satisfaction. And the purpose of sharing this with you is that maybe you too will be able to tap into this heart space. Now imagine that the people that start to interact come from this place of love and of caring, and that's now the way that people interact with each other. Imagine the economic decisions that can be made on that, the decisions for families, the decisions for the community and society, the decisions of what the vision should be for a city, for example, the decisions on what your home life should be like, if the players that are involved are coming from this perceptual state. Famous philosopher named Alan Watts wrote into the book the idea of what he called the observer. And the observer is that part of us that sits behind the part that has all the experiences. So think of a puppet master and there's the puppet, but it's not really that way. It's sort of sitting behind the screen of what's taking place that we call reality. And what Watts tells us is that that observer is really pure. And what I'm saying is that when you tap into this heart space, you and that observer are really connected. That's your true and higher self. That's what's now operating. And that difference between the observer and what is being observed starts to diminish and diminish further, and it gets to the point of where you're now acting with raw, true, authentic engagement from your higher self in the world, within and without you. This is what I want to call true experience. So this true test stands for being truthful, rooted, understanding, and enlightened self-interest. That test is in the golden rule or the mean, and therefore allows you to have interactions that are virtuous in nature. So when you choose to like things, which is how I started this, when I really authentically, truly like things, I am perceptually coming from a very happy, satisfied, fulfilled place that is in my heart that I carry with me all the time. That heart space is with you all the time. You don't have to go anywhere and do anything crazy. You just need to rock back into it. Take a deep breath, find your consciousness, settling into that heart space, and now decisions that you make will be things that are going to pass the true test, be blissful in nature, and help you feel fulfilled. That's what I mean by I have chosen to like things. So good luck. And thanks for watching another episode of Kai-Zen Consciousness, where the possibilities are endless.